Imagine living a life you thought was perfect until one night changes everything. That was my reality when I discovered my wife's secret affair, hidden behind our happy family facade for over 3 years. More than 500 encounters, all while I believed we were building something real. The betrayal hit hard, and the consequences? Even harder. But through the devastation, I found the strength to rebuild, to rise above the pain. In this story, I'll take you through every twist and turn, the heartbreak, the lessons learned, and how I finally found peace. Stay with me. You won't want to miss how it all unfolds. I never thought Sarah's big night would turn into the worst moment of my life. I sat there, smiling, watching her receive praise and applause. But something felt off, small things at first, a strange look here, a misplaced word there. Slowly, it all began to click. The event wasn't just about celebrating her achievements. No, there was a secret, one I couldn't ignore anymore. It hit me like a wave, leaving me breathless. My wife, the woman I trusted, had been unfaithful for 3 years, more than 500 times, with her boss, William. The word stimulant flashed through my mind, but instead of excitement, it brought nothing but despair. As people laughed and clinked their glasses around us, I felt like I was drowning. Her betrayal felt deliberate, with intention. How could she have continued for so long? Right under my nose, I started to piece together every excuse, every late night, every business trip. It all made sense now. And the satisfaction I once felt in our life together turned into a gnawing emptiness. I was frozen, my body rigid, barely holding it together in front of the crowd. But inside, I was crumbling, fighting the urge to explode right there. When the event finally ended, I stood there in a daze, my mind spiraling. Sarah was still mingling, laughing, pretending everything was fine. But how could it be fine? I knew everything now. I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, but something in me held back. I wasn't ready yet. The night that was supposed to be a celebration had become a twisted nightmare. And I knew from this point on, nothing would ever be the same. Sarah and I met in college, and from the very start, everything felt easy. We had this effortless connection, and everyone around us thought we were the perfect couple. We shared our dreams, our hopes, and built a life that seemed enviable from the outside. We got married not long after graduation, had our daughter Angel, and created a life that was both comfortable and financially secure. Our home was filled with laughter, and for a long time, I believed we had everything. I never questioned her intentions, never doubted her love. In fact, I felt a deep satisfaction in the life we had built together. Looking back now, I wonder if I was too blind, too trusting. Maybe I was so caught up in the image of us being the perfect couple that I ignored the small cracks that were beginning to form. Our routine was smooth, but perhaps too smooth. The long hours at work, the late nights, I brushed them off as necessary sacrifices for our future. And yet, all the while, there was a hidden layer beneath what I thought was a solid relationship. The signs were there, but I was too wrapped up in the life we had built to notice. Ignorance is bliss, they say. Angel was always the glue that held us together, our pride and joy. I wonder now how much she sensed over the years, how much of Sarah's secret weighed on our family without me even realizing it. The thought gnaws at me, leaving me questioning everything. Did Sarah ever truly regret her actions, or was this just another game she played? The questions are endless, and with each one, the image of our once perfect life becomes harder to recognize. After the event, Sarah could tell something had shifted. She didn't even wait for me to say a word. The moment we were alone, she broke down, begging for forgiveness. Her tears flowed freely, and the desperation in her voice was unmistakable. She claimed it was a mistake, that she never meant to hurt me. But how could I believe that? 3 years and more than 500 times with the same man? Her pleas felt hollow. She spoke of her guilt, her regret, but all I could hear was the deafening silence of my broken trust. What did she expect? For me to just forget it all? I couldn't bring myself to look at her. I was numb. It wasn't that I didn't feel anything. It was that I felt too much. Betrayal, anger, humiliation, all wrapped up in a tight knot that refused to loosen. She kept talking, kept asking for a chance to explain, but I didn't care. She spoke of intention, as if trying to rationalize her actions would somehow make them easier to digest. But I was done listening. Every word that came out of her mouth felt like another slap to the face. My silence was all I could offer her in return. In the end, I didn't give her the satisfaction of a response. What was there to say? No apology, no explanation would erase the image of her with him, the lies she'd told, the trust she'd shattered. I needed space, time to think. She begged me not to leave, but I couldn't stay in that moment any longer. All I knew was that this was only the beginning, and the path ahead was going to be long, painful, and uncertain. The days after the revelation were suffocating. I couldn't look at Sarah the same way, couldn't touch her without feeling the weight of her betrayal. Our home, once a place of comfort, now felt cold and unfamiliar. I began to withdraw, both emotionally and physically, unable to be close to her. Every time I heard her voice, it reminded me of the lies. I barely spoke, giving her nothing but short, empty responses when absolutely necessary. The tension in the house was palpable, and even Angel, our daughter, could sense something was deeply wrong. She asked questions, but I didn't have the heart to explain. It's strange how quickly love can turn to resentment. Every small thing she did started to irritate me. Her laugh, once a source of joy, now grated on my nerves. I couldn't help but replay moments in my head, wondering if she was thinking of him during all those family dinners, vacations, or even when we were together. I wasn't angry all the time, though. Sometimes I just felt nothing, a hollow emptiness where my love for her used to be. And the more I tried to distance myself, the more I saw the cracks widening, not just between us, but in the very fabric of our family. Angel, our sweet girl, was caught in the middle of it all. I could see the confusion in her eyes, the silence at the dinner table, the lack of warmth between Sarah and me. It wasn't lost on her. She deserved better, but I didn't know how to fix things. Every decision I made seemed wrong. Should I leave? Should I stay? The questions tormented me, but one thing was clear. Nothing about our relationship was the same anymore, and I couldn't pretend it was. At some point, the anger overtook the numbness. I couldn't let William, the man who stole 3 years of my life, walk away untouched. That's when I called my brother, Tony. Tony was always the one who handled things in his own way. His connections ran deep, and not all of them were legal. When I told him about Sarah and William, he didn't hesitate. There was a cold, almost comforting satisfaction in his voice as he asked, "What do you want me to do?" I didn't have to say much. Tony already knew what I needed. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming some kind of power in this mess. The plan was simple, but the intention behind it was dark. I wanted William to suffer, to feel even a fraction of the pain he'd caused me. Tony arranged everything with chilling precision. I remember the night he called me to say it was done. I didn't ask for details. I didn't want to know exactly what happened. All I knew was that William was left in a state he wouldn't recover from easily. Permanent damage. That should have made me feel better, right? But instead, all I felt was a strange emptiness. The satisfaction I thought would come from revenge wasn't there. Looking back, I'm not proud of it. But at the time, it felt like the only way to cope with everything spiraling out of control. Sarah never knew about my involvement, and part of me wonders if she ever suspected. It didn't matter, though. The damage was done, both to William and to myself. And while Tony assured me it was taken care of, the guilt lingered. I had crossed a line, and even though I wanted to believe it was justified, part of me knew that nothing about this situation would bring real closure. After the dust settled and the anger dulled, we found ourselves in therapy. I wasn't doing it for Sarah, I was doing it for Angel. She deserved better than the tension that had taken over our home. The therapist's office was neutral, almost too calm for what we were about to discuss. Sarah seemed eager, hopeful even, but I could barely muster the energy to care. The number 500 echoed in my mind constantly. How could I ever get past that? It wasn't just the affair. It was the sheer scale of it, the intentional nature behind each of those encounters. The therapist encouraged us to talk, to express our feelings, but I felt detached, almost robotic. Sarah poured her heart out, talking about her regrets, how lost she'd felt, but I couldn't connect with her words. It felt like a performance, an act to win me back. But how could I trust her again? I sat there, numb, giving just enough to seem engaged, but deep down I was miles away. The truth is, I wasn't there to fix anything. I was there to keep things from falling apart completely, at least for Angel's sake. She needed stability, even if I couldn't offer Sarah the same anymore. The sessions dragged on, but I couldn't shake the image of Sarah with William. It haunted me day and night. The therapist spoke of healing, of moving forward, but I couldn't see a future where that was possible. The betrayal was too deep, too calculated. Every time I looked at Sarah, all I saw was the number 500. It was a constant reminder of how far gone we were. And while therapy was supposed to help, it only reinforced the distance between us. The damage was irreparable, and no amount of talking could change that. William paid a heavy price for his choices, far beyond anything I could have imagined. It wasn't long after Tony's involvement that his life began to crumble. Word got out about the affair, and his professional reputation was ruined. He lost his job almost immediately, fired with no severance, no recommendations, nothing. I'd like to say I felt some kind of satisfaction, but watching his downfall didn't bring the closure I expected. It was just another reminder of how far things had spiraled out of control. Sarah's actions had ripple effects, and William was at the center of that destructive wave. But his fall didn't stop there. His wife, once oblivious, found out everything. She left him, taking their children and whatever dignity he had left. I heard whispers through mutual contacts that he was struggling, his life in tatters. He tried to hold on, but the weight of it all proved too much. One day, the news came. William had taken his own life. It was like a punch to the gut. I thought I wanted him to suffer, but not like that. Not this. His end was brutal, and the responsibility of it all pressed down on me in ways I wasn't prepared for. Sarah was devastated when she heard. I could see the guilt eating away at her, though she tried to hide it. She never said it outright, but I knew she blamed herself for his death. And maybe she was right. Their choices, her betrayal, his involvement, had led to this tragic conclusion. But in the end, no one won. The destruction was too far-reaching. William's life was over, and Sarah was left to grapple with the consequences of what they had done. It was a reminder that no one escapes these situations without scars. By the time Angel went off to college, I knew there was no salvaging what was left of our marriage. The love, the trust, it was all gone, replaced by a cold, silent distance between us. I held out as long as I could, mostly for Angel's sake, but the moment she left, it felt like the final thread snapped. Sarah knew it was coming. We'd both been living as strangers under the same roof for too long. I could see the sadness in her eyes, the realization that her actions had finally destroyed everything. The divorce was inevitable, and this time, there was no apology that could fix it. Part of me considered taking her for everything. After all, she was the one who broke our vows, shattered our family. But in the end, I decided against it. What would be the point? Dragging her through a financial mess wouldn't erase the past or undo the damage. Instead, I chose a fair split. There was a strange kind of satisfaction in walking away with my dignity intact. Sarah, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. The weight of her choices left her broken, lonely, and as much as I once loved her, I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for her anymore. Moving on wasn't easy, but eventually, I found happiness again. I met someone who understood what it meant to rebuild, to heal. Meanwhile, Sarah's life seemed to unravel further. She became a shadow of her former self, lonely, withdrawn. I suppose that's the real consequence of her actions. She lost more than just our marriage. She lost herself in the process. And as for me, I finally let go of the past, ready to start over, free from the weight of what she'd done. Despite everything that happened, Angel turned out remarkably well. She always had a quiet strength, even as a child, and I think that's what helped her navigate the chaos that Sarah and I had caused. After the divorce, she never blamed me. nor did she blame Sarah. Instead, she focused on her own path, determined not to repeat the mistakes she saw growing up. She threw herself into her studies, and it wasn't long before she found her passion in psychology. It made sense. She wanted to understand people, to help them heal in ways I never could with Sarah. Angel built a life for herself, one rooted in understanding and empathy. She didn't let the pain of our broken family define her. Instead, she used it as fuel to grow, to become someone who could help others avoid the same pitfalls. She found satisfaction in her work, and as a father, there was nothing more I could have asked for. Watching her succeed, build a family of her own, gave me a sense of peace. She learned from our mistakes, and in a way, that was the one silver lining in all of this mess. What struck me most was her resilience. She kept a good relationship with both me and Sarah, never letting the past cloud her judgment. I admired her for that. As much as I wanted to leave the pain behind, she had a way of bringing us all together, reminding us that, despite everything, we were still a family in some strange way. She broke the cycle, choosing happiness, choosing to build a future free from the shadows of our past. And for that, I'll always be proud. Looking back, the story is almost surreal. What started as a perfect life slowly unraveled into something unrecognizable. Sarah's betrayal shattered the illusion, and I was left to pick up the pieces of what once was. But despite the pain, I learned more about myself than I ever thought possible. I discovered that real strength isn't in holding on. It's in knowing when to let go. The satisfaction I once sought in revenge or reconciliation eventually gave way to acceptance. It's strange how life works. The things that nearly broke me ended up pushing me toward a better version of myself. This isn't just my story. It's a lesson about trust, forgiveness, and the choices we make. Sarah, William, and I, we all face consequences for our actions, some more tragic than others. But through it all, one thing remained clear. No one comes out of betrayal unscathed. It leaves scars, yes, but it also opens doors for growth. I found peace, rebuilt my life, and, most importantly, found someone who could love me the way I deserved. As for Sarah, her path was different, lonelier, darker. But that was the price she paid for her choices. As the video comes to a close, I hope this story touched you in some way. If you've ever faced betrayal, know that you're not alone. It's hard, but healing is possible. Please, if this story resonated with you, like the video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'm sure many of you have been through something similar, and your stories matter too. Let's create a space where we can talk openly, without judgment, and find the strength to move forward.
Keep watching our stories by clicking on one of the videos that appear on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be alerted about new videos. See you next time.